This particular story, Fluffies by Hickscom, is called Fluffies, written by Hickscom. Spine Leader Leaf pulled his armed helmet over his quilled head, pressing spines down along his back. The visor darkened as the connections to his suit were secured, obscuring his face from outside view. He readied himself as the breaching pod drifted from the safety of the heavy battle cruiser towards the largest fragment of a shattered outpost. Damned harvesters, he thought, tightening his grip on his plasma rifle. His short claws tapped rhythmically against the safety, counting the seconds until the pod would pierce the skin of the station. There had been several of these attacks in recent weeks, and each station sent out distress calls as they fell. This was the latest and also the only one that still had harvester ships attached. Leaf scanned the surface of the station as he floated by, noting the positions of several harvester craft along his planned path. Something about them seemed off in his mind, though it took him nearly a minute to place the problem. Their ships are still here, but there's no other activity, the realization washed over him. Whatever the harvesters had encountered on the station must have been devastating. There were no visible holes where any of the ships might have escaped. Leaf frowned at his helmet, then reached up and tapped a claw on the panel on the side. Spine Leader switching to comms, preparing to breach. Are we getting any radio chatter on any known harvester frequencies? Negative, SL, the night is quiet, came the quick reply. Jaseer, yeah, I am seeing a lot of Harvey ships still embedded. Are we sure that there are no signals? Confirming, SL, we have no signals on any known frequencies. You seeing something we're not, boss? Just a feeling, my spines are twitching a bit on this one. I'll keep comms open for the duration. If there are any live Harveys on my feed, you are ordered to open fire in my position. Sir, that will kill you. You know the rules, dead harvesters are more important than any of us. Bracing, Leaf wrapped his free hand around a nearby brace bar, then tensed himself against it as the pod tore into the side of the station. The access door before him popped outwards with a hiss, and he raised his plasma rifle into position. Station breached, making entry. His footsteps were slow, steady, and quiet as he made his way down the corridor. Protocol dictated he first find the security office of the station and connect an uplink. He followed the signs on the wall, augmented by his helmet's heads-up display, methodically yanking doors and corners as he moved. Though nothing jumped out at him, not surprisingly, there was a considerable amount of carnage littering the corridors of the station. This was a relatively robust outpost in the confluence of several medium-sized trade routes. His HUD rapidly identified and documented over a dozen species as he went. A few identifications were given lower confidence ratings based on the magnitude of damage the bodies had sustained, but protocols were protocols, and each of their respective governing bodies would need to be notified when this was over. He stopped outside the security office door. It was mostly closed, but there was a faint shimmer of light coming through. Without moving his feet, Leaf craned his head slightly to peek through the crack in the door frame. Several monitors were flickering, most of them little more than static. One of them appeared to still have some functionality, though. He took a steadying breath, readied his rifle, and shut the door open, swinging the barrel back and forth. He checked rapidly for any signs of an ambush, none came. A minute later, satisfied that the room was indeed empty, he pulled a small device out of his shoulder pocket and plugged it into the nearest data port he could find. Security uplink engaged. Begin data collection and analysis while I check the rest of the station. Understood. We'll let you know if we see anything you need to know about. Leaf stepped back out of the security office and continued down the main corridor. He entered a central plaza, a place that would ordinarily be filled with hundreds of beings from dozens of worlds all buying, selling, trading, and generally living their lives. He recognized a few common establishments here and there in the wreckage. One food vendor that prided itself on maximum flavor and calorie density, with a number of smiling cartoon versions of different galactic member species, seemed considerably less inviting with splashes of different colors of blood all over it. Leaf stood in the plaza and slowly turned, letting the HUD catalog as many individuals as it could. While this was by no means a desirable part of his job, there was a solemn acceptance amongst his unit that the dead should be made known to their people. After a moment, the HUD flashed red and outlined a particular body in the crowd. Red line, Red line, Spine Leader. Will engage offensive armor mode, requested. Half a second later, panels of his armor shifted and slid along their axes, turning his hardened shell into a sharpened array of razor-edged spines running the length of his arms, legs, and back. He stepped closer to the red outline, his HUD flashing a proximity warning, but the shape didn't move. Slowly, he advanced until the outline became unmistakable. Most of the harvester was lying on the ground before him, its limbs bent and broken in gruesome ways, and half of its head crushed into the deck plating. Dead Harvey, can you confirm visuals? Yes, SL, confirmed visual of dead harvester. Anything on the data uplinks yet that might explain this? Leaf's display blinked to alert him to the awaiting video. He brought it up beside the smashed harvester corpse. The video included several angles of harvester breach ships opening up into the main plaza, followed quickly by immediate bloodshed and violence. Then, as usual, the harvesters began to disperse along various corridors. From one corridor, several harvesters suddenly came running back, followed quickly by a mangled corpse hurtling through the air and splattering against the ground where Leaf stood. My spines, he muttered. Is there any information on the kind of dangerous megapredator of the station that checked the black market investigation logs? Nothing at all, SL, whatever that was, it wasn't. Wait a minute. Don't have a lot of time here. Well, it's odd. There's a registered entry for something from a Class 12 Deathworld, but no listing of classification as predator or megapredator or anything. It just says assigned to school. Leaf glanced at the corridor wall where the corpse had been flung from. The word for school was embossed on the wall in several languages, including their own native language. Check records. Any of our civilians here? Checking. Yes, Spine Leader, there was a group of colonial homesteaders that were spending a couple of weeks here to finish gathering the last few latecomers before they finished their trip and set off. Leaf steeled himself for all the probable horrors that he would be facing as he made his way down the corridor towards the school. His HUD lit up with several more outlines, each one confirmed to be a brutally broken harvester corpse. He moved more quickly now, letting his footsteps make real sounds as he wound through the abattoir. The lights along the ceiling were fading in this area, likely due to being smashed with monster heads. He flicked the light on his rifle into place and shined it slowly into the dark corners. The light passed the doorway, and Leaf nearly missed it, bringing his heavily armored hand up to block just in time as a savage clatter or roar erupted from a heavy metal pipe slammed into his armor over and over. He barely managed to keep to his feet as he moved backward. His sudden retreat seemed to confuse the creature before him, at least long enough for Leaf to raise a hand and gesture to stop. Hold, blue, unknown species, unknown intentions. Individual is holding at a distance. Activating translation matrices. A series of melodic pings rose from the external speaker. Leaf counted them as primes. The creature glared at Leaf, then shouted something unintelligible. His HUD reported progress on the translation. He had to keep it talking. He gestured to himself and then said his name through the speaker. Leaf. He gestured to the creature, hoping that it would catch on. It glared at him and raised the pipe slightly higher. No, the Fluffies. The creature shuffled backward towards the doorway, never taking its eyes off Leaf. Leaf glanced up as motion caught his eye around a corner mirror near the top of the wall, showing him the creature's back. Wait, he shouted through the speaker, both hands gestured outwards towards the creature. It raised its pipe again and yelled, making a partial lunge at Leaf. What are you doing? That thing is clearly a monster. On its back, it's okay. Trust me. Leaf held up both hands, striving for steadiness. The creature stared intently with fierce, deeply predatory eyes. Leaf pushed down an ancient instinct with everything he had and slowly disengaged his helmet. Spine Leader, stop, came the shrieking voice from the headset as Leaf pulled the helmet free and shook his head slightly, letting his head spines loosen up and spike out towards the cool air in the station. The creature lowered the pipe slowly. You big Fluffy. Leaf pointed at himself again. Leaf. He pointed to the creature. The creature pointed to itself with the pipe. Jess. It pointed back at Leaf. Fluffy. Leaf nodded. The creature pointed to itself. Not Fluffy. Leaf gestured to the room behind the creature. Fluffy? Jess paused, then hesitantly nodded. It took several steps backward into the darkness beyond. Leaf cautiously followed until he saw a much larger figure laying near the wall, whimpering in pain. Jaceer, I have a massive target here, possibly a parental figure of the creature. Send in medical teams immediately, medical, and do not fire at the unknown creature. The massive creature groaned softly and lowered its head. The smaller creature beside it slowly climbed onto the larger one's back, snuggling against its scales, spines, and horns. Leaf slowly lowered his rifle, clicking the safety back on. The figure turned towards him, glaring and growling as Leaf leaned forward. He took a deep breath and muttered, "Spine Leader confirmed hostilities are over. Make sure no harvesters are left alive." "Copy that, Spine Leader, we're coming in." The end. And that, my friends, is the tale of Fluffies. Quite a delightful story. The play of words like Spine Leader or Harvester gives a sense of threat and conflict, yet the delightful interplay of discovering Fluffies brings a happy resolution to the tale.